Looking to improve your Datacron hunting skills? In this SWTOR Datacron guide, we will cover the tips, tricks, and techniques for hunting Datacrons. Let's deconstruct the best practices for finding and collecting Datacrons.
Deconstruction Gaming.
In this guide, we're going to explore companions, using vehicles, some audio tricks, getting some help from your friends, the movement system, jumping techniques, and wrap things up with a conclusion. So first, let's take a look at companions. As you can see, my companion is still standing down here where I first started entering this jumping puzzle. So while I went along these beams and climbed pipes and worked my way around to get up onto this platform, my companion wasn't able to do that. He's still down there waiting at the last spot he was able to walk on. Now, this will create some interesting things. So there's our companion sitting down there. We're going to go ahead and go down this elevator and take a look and see what happens. Because I've gotten too far away from my companion, you're going to see that he has teleported to us, but now he's confused. This isn't an area that he knows how to walk on, so now he's essentially walking back to the last known good location that he can walk. As you can see, the distance from me is going crazy, and he's just trying to get back there. This is something that you're going to deal with as you get into a lot of areas with these jumping puzzles that the companions just can't handle. So another companion oddity that you may run into is they actually get confused. As you can see here, my companion is turned into an invalid character. This really starts to cause problems with your ability to summon companions, dismiss companions, or interact with them in any way. So here you're going to see our companion is teleported back to us, but as soon as they did, they want to get back to that last known good location. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get back up onto the crates, but they are in the same general area. So let's go down and look at the last oddity in companions. So we're going to go back down into the tunnels here, and again, our companion is going to teleport, but we're going to run really quickly here, see if we can get him to follow us. And you may have seen the companion pop in down there below the crates. Right, so we got too far away from the companion, and now the code is kicking in to say, okay, I'm too far away from the player, let's teleport the companion. Unfortunately, the companion isn't allowed to walk in this area, so you're just going to see him keep teleporting and catching up with us and catching up with us. This is a little weird the first time it happens to you, but you will see this kind of behavior. So if you see your companion getting stuck, it's okay. It's not going to cause any problems. So here we can see the companion now has walked through a wall again, but he's found safe terrain. This is an area where the companion is allowed to walk. And this is interesting in that now the companion is trying to get to me, but there's a wall between us. So he's walking in good locations, but can't get to me. Alright, so let's go back through the tunnel system here, see what happens to our companion. So now we see he's back to teleporting. Right through the wall, but again, can't walk in this area. So as we go down the tunnel, he'll keep teleporting, and then we're going to go back up the elevator and see what happens. So as we come back up the elevator, we're going to get the same thing that happened before. Our companion is going to teleport to us, but now you'll notice he went a different direction. He jumped down there on the ground. He didn't go back over to the boxes. So he's still doing the same thing. He's trying to get to his last known good location. Well, now that he went through that wall, he's going to that spot. He's worked his way back down into the water and is now standing down there waiting for us. This is normal behavior when you're Datacron hunting, so don't panic or don't freak out if you see this happen. It's not that it's anything that's broken, it's just the way these hidden areas tend to work. As you start to explore for Datacrons, you go to a lot of places that aren't normal areas for your companions to walk on. Okay, so we saw our companions do some really weird things, but why does that matter? Well, in this particular area, we can actually take advantage of this. There are some areas when you're Datacron hunting that you're going to be walking along and going through jumping puzzles, and you're going to pull aggro, usually from something on the ground. Now, if you're a ranged character, this usually isn't a big deal because you can shoot at them and take care of it. But what if you're not? What if you're a melee character? If you draw aggro, being in combat is going to slow you down, and it's also going to affect some of your jumps. But My companion is still standing down there on his last known good location, so I can send him after him. I can let my companion kill the NPCs, and that gets me out of combat. Being out of combat, I can now safely make these jumps and not fall short. So this is something you can work with. Now, something will happen here. You notice that we've got the teleporting companion again, so I can no longer take advantage of this. So hopefully I'm high enough that I'm not drawing aggro. In this case, you can see I'm not aggroing the NPCs below, and we will be just fine. Next, we're going to take a look at vehicles and traveling. So in this particular sequence, we're going to run along these pipes, go around a corner here, go down this pipe and make a single jump right here, and then we're going to stop at this next corner. Now, the default way of travel is to probably run, and this is by far the safest, but there are going to be some sequences where you're going to want to move faster. So let's try this on a jetpack. I personally like the jetpack in that it keeps you in still the character size. This way you can kind of still see where you should be and not fall off the pipes, and you'll notice that that was a much quicker run. Not everybody might have a jetpack, so there are different ways to do things. Second one is rocket boost. Rocket boost is nice in that this is a way to travel in areas where vehicles aren't allowed. So you will find yourselves hunting Datacrons in some areas where you can equip a vehicle, and that extra little boost of speed is definitely nice. But what about other vehicles? We can try it with a walker. Walker still has kind of the bipedal profile, so if you're used to that, you can actually travel along pipes pretty well, although the added height and size can cause problems with clipping and camera issues. If you don't like walkers, you could move into something like the motorcycle. Again, keeping a very slim profile so we can keep ourselves on the pipe, and this allows us to continue to move and not fall, although you will notice that it does tip a little bit, and that's something we're going to address here in a little bit. Let's get something bigger. What about a Vectron? In this one you're going to see it's a little bit longer, and the tipping actually becomes a little bit less pronounced because it's shorter. Again, nice and narrow, so it makes staying on the pipes actually pretty easy. I would not recommend going into some of the bigger vehicles though. Two things here. One, you are not centered in the vehicle, and that can throw you off because you are actually traveling with the center of the vehicle. And two, these things get so wide it's kind of hard to tell where you are on the pipe. The worst case is a vehicle that you can't even see your character. So in this case, we're completely enclosed, and we're going to try to travel along these pipes. Now you'll notice as I dip along the pipes that the vehicle tips back and forth, and this is a problem with these bigger vehicles. So let's take a closer look at this tilting. When you're not mounted, you're going to notice as I move from left to right on the pipe that my body stays upright. This keeps my perspective the same. When I get on the jetpack, you'll notice I do tilt a little bit, but this usually doesn't throw you off too much. But as I start to get on different vehicles, you're going to see different things happen. Rocket boost, very similar to the jetpack, again a little bit of a tilt. We're going to turn that one off, and let's go to the walker. Now the walker is interesting because it does use legs. You're going to notice it doesn't tilt on the pipes, although the feet don't line up, and that might cause you some problems. Now you're going to start to see vehicle tilting go on. Now this isn't anything that's going to make you fall off, but it is something that could throw off your jumping and different things like that. The Vectron, same thing as the motorcycle, it's going to tilt back and forth. And then as we get to the bigger vehicles, you're going to see that it really becomes pronounced. Mostly this is just due to the size of the vehicles. We're tilting the same angles, but because these vehicles are so much bigger, they tend to exaggerate that tilt quite a bit. If you're trying to navigate small spaces, this can definitely be a problem. As we mentioned in the guide to Datacrons, sound can be a way to identify your Datacrons, but sometimes they're hard to hear. So in this, we're going to take our music and turn our music down, and we're going to turn our ambient volume down and listen to the difference. Once these are down, you can actually hear the hint of the Datacron sound. Hear it? They're in the background. You can hear them 40 meters away, and if you turn down these other sounds, they can be easier to hear. So if you are having trouble finding a location, or you can't quite figure out where the Datacron is, this can be a technique to actually listen for the Datacron. Another aspect that you can take advantage of is the game's positional audio. So here you'll notice that the Datacron is right in front of me, But as I turn my camera, the Datacron sound will move from speaker to speaker. Depending on your setup, this could be stereo or surround sound, but this will actually allow you to hear where the Datacron is and maybe get a better idea of the location. So let's look at another example. Here we've still got our music and ambient sound, so let's get rid of those by lowering our music volume and our ambient sound volume. And once we do that, we still have the combat sounds, but we can hear the Datacron. Hear it in the background? It's very, very faint. Now another thing you have to always consider is Datacrons won't necessarily be on your plane of sight. This Datacron is located above us, but the 40 meter rule still applies. If it's within 40 meters, it will make some sounds. We can't get to this one directly, but at least we know where it is. Datacron hunting in a group gives you some advantages. A lot of classes have leaps, pulls, grapples, harpoons, and different things that can help you get people from place to place. If you have somebody who's struggling, you could just pull them up to a ledge. This is a great technique if you have a sage or a sorcerer. Another thing that you can do is some classes will have their leap abilities. In this case, our guardian can leap to a friend that has already made the jumps, and that makes life a little bit easier as well. Another way to accomplish this is with a duel. So let's say you were Datacron hunting with somebody from a different faction and couldn't do a friendly leap. This would allow you to actually do an attack leap. So I can leap up to my friend, and then we just end the duel. Don't be afraid to get creative. A combination of skills can move people around. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use the Vanguard transpose that gets my friend up onto the ledge. And now if I need to, I can request a duel. And we will do the same thing. As a Vanguard, I've got a storm ability, so I'll be able to leap up to my friend. And now we're both up on the ledge. The Vanguard also has a harpoon, so I could have just pulled him up as well. But if you use the combination of all these skills, you can move each other around and help each other out in order to make your Datacron hunting a little bit less painful. Okay, let's talk about the movement system in the Old Republic. There's actually two different mechanisms that control the speed of your movement. Why is movement important? Speed of your movement dictates the length of your jumps. The momentum that you have lets you go forward. So the first thing here is our sprint. Sprint is a toggle that I can turn on and off, and it increases or decreases my speed by 35%. This is the one most people are familiar with, and it's actually pretty easy to find. The second thing is our walk-run button. By default, we can find it under the key binding tabs under movement, and it will be mapped to the num/key. You can change this if you want, but this is a keyboard shortcut that will allow you to change your movement speed drastically. So armed with this movement information, walk, run, and our sprint button, let's take a look at how it impacts our movement speed. First, we have both run and sprint on. This is the normal that most people are used to moving around in the world. First, let's turn the sprint off. We're going to see a slight reduction in speed, and this can help us in our jumping if we're trying to make a bit shorter of a jump. Now let's turn our sprint back on, and we will press our / key on the numpad in order to really reduce our speed. You can see this really has an impact on our speed. Even with sprint on, we're moving quite slowly. And finally, we'll turn our sprint off, and we will walk back, and you can really see the decrease in speed here. Now, these two slower speeds you're probably not going to use a lot for jumping, but they can come in handy when you're trying to drop off of platforms or fall into a particular area inside the world. Okay, now that we've seen the movement in action, let's see how this impacts our jumps. First, we do a normal jump. You can see the distance that we covered in this jump. Next, let's try that same jump with the sprint off. So we're going to run up and make our jump, and notice we didn't go quite as far. This can be a good way to target a particular platform or pipe or beam or whatever it is you're looking to jump to. Now we're going to go nice and slow. We have our walk on and our sprint on. You're going to notice this jump doesn't get us very far, but if you're really looking for a precision jump, you can use this one. And finally, our slowest jump. This is with our walk and no sprint on. Probably not going to use this a lot for jumping, as it really doesn't get you very far. Another technique you can use is going backwards. Backwards does slow you down slightly, so this is a full sprint. You'll notice we didn't make it quite as far as our running forward jump. And we'll do the same thing. We'll turn our sprint off, run backwards, and take a nice leap here. So on this graphic, you're going to see all of the different lines that represents the general distances you're going to get out of the jumps. Our first two green lines represent our running with sprint on and off. Our yellow lines represent our jumping backwards with sprint on and off. And our red lines represent our walking with sprint on and off. The common ones you're probably going to use here are the green and yellow ones. The running full bore with sprint on and off, or going backwards with sprint on and off. Making jumps with those very, very slow walking speeds really doesn't come into play. Finally, let's take a look at our full jump again. You notice as we go straight, we can actually jump, but we can influence our path a little bit. If as soon as we jump and get in the air, we push to the left or to the right, you're going to notice that it does make me angle off in that direction just a little bit. This can be very handy if you're trying to stick a pipe or land on a particular beam. Okay, jumping on a rug is one thing, but jumping on actual platforms is something else. So let's take a look at some of these newfound skills that we have and put them in practice. I set up 4 tables here that are different distances from our platform. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump off of this very near table up onto the platform. You'll notice that I turned my sprint off and I can still make this jump. So let's go a little bit farther out. Let's see if we can make that jump. And we just can't quite make it. So we don't have enough momentum in our speed. So if we turn our sprint back on, let's give this a try. And we can now make this jump. So you can see that the distance that we travel is based off of our speed. So what if we go out a little bit farther? Can I make the jump here? Nope. Don't have enough speed to do that. So our next way to get speed is to use our mounts. And this is why we want to practice using our mounts on pipes and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and go with the jetpack. And you'll notice now I can easily make this jump. But how far can we go? Let's go ahead and go out to this platform and see if we can make it. And we cannot. So this kind of gives you a visual indication of how far you can jump based off of your different movement types. Turn your sprint on and off or mount up. If we zoom out here a little bit and take a look, you're going to notice that the tables kind of give us a visual guide of how far we can jump. The first table was our no sprint, the second table was our sprint, and the third table was our jetpack or our vehicle. That is quite a ways that you can actually make a jump, and we are jumping up onto a slightly higher platform, so keep this in mind as you're trying to figure out your path to the next Datacron. For most people, the jumping aspect of Datacron hunting is probably the most frustrating. So what I would recommend is actually do some practicing. Try to pick a target and see if you can jump to it. If I'm going to make a short jump, make an adjustment, right? If I just want to go a little bit, I'm going to turn my sprint off, and I can make this shorter jump. Or I can jump over here. That's a longer jump, so I'm going to turn my sprint back on, and I can make my longer jump. Eventually, you'll be able to start to gauge these distances. If I need to go a really long ways, like all the way to the end of that table, I can use a mount, and I can make a nice long jump. Practicing this and getting used to the jumping mechanics and figuring out the distances that you can travel through your jumps will make your Datacron hunting a lot easier. Okay. Now that we've mastered jumping in our test arena, let's put this to use in the real world. You're often going to come across jumping puzzles that will have a pillar or something that makes you have to jump around a corner. You need to learn to start to spot and be able to land on the beam, pipe, or ledge that you need to jump to. So finding a spot like this that you can actually practice without too much damage is actually a good idea. Another situation you're going to run into is trying to jump up onto platforms. The momentum mechanic will cause you some problems here. So if I walk up to this pipe and then try to make my jump, you're going to notice that my character can't make it. I just don't have enough forward momentum to get up onto this rounded pipe. So oftentimes in situations like this, you need to actually back up and jump from farther away so your momentum will carry you up onto the pipe. Okay, here's a classic puzzle. We're standing on the pipe and we need to get up onto this next ledge. You notice that there is a gap here, and that the ledge is actually above us. What we worry about here is can we make the jump, but not jump too far. So let's give this jump a try. In this case, we've got our run on and our sprint on. We're not going to back up very far because we're on a very small pipe, and we'll give this a shot. Well, we jumped high enough, but we jumped way too far. Our momentum was just too much and it carried us over the ledge. So let's try this again. We have the same situation. We've got to make this gap, but we don't want to overshoot our jump here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our sprint off, and this will lessen our forward momentum for our jump. Now, when we make this jump, we don't overshoot the ledge, and we can safely move on to the next jumping puzzle. Another real-world situation you'll find yourself in is having to drop onto a ledge. In this case, I've turned both the run and the sprint off, and we're just going to walk off this ledge. You notice that we fell pretty close to that little light in the middle of the road. So let's try this same drop with the run on and the sprint on. You notice how much farther away from the light my momentum carried me. This is just due to the speed that I was moving when I fell. If we try this with our vehicle, you're going to notice that we drop out even farther. So, as you're trying to drop down onto ledges or into particular areas, this is a good rule to keep track of. Let's take a look at where this will really cause you a problem. On Tatooine, there are 2 Datacrons on the sandcrawler. It's about a 40-minute balloon ride to get out to the sandcrawler, and so when you get the first Datacron and you walk over to this ledge and you see the second Datacron down there, and you walk off the ledge and shoot right over the edge, it can be very frustrating. Unfortunately, I learned this from experience in my very early days of Star Wars: The Old Republic. So, what do we learn here? If we turn our sprint off and we turn our run off, we can actually drop down nearly vertical and not overshoot those platforms. So I hope these tips, tricks, and techniques help your Datacron hunting. Datacron hunting can be frustrating, but if you practice some of your jumping techniques and figure out some of these distances and speeds, it can make life a whole lot easier. If you're interested in the stats or background of Datacrons, please check out the other videos in this play series. Good luck, have fun, and start Datacron hunting. Thank you for watching this Deconstruction Gaming video. If you found this information useful, please take the time to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support is critical in helping the channel grow. You can also find links in the description to support the channel and follow us on social media. When you subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification bell icon to be alerted when we upload new videos.